I think we're here. I don't know if that worked or not. It says
I'm
we're
here.
live, and we've been live for 22 seconds.
I'm here. Are you here?
I'm here. I think the chat is here. If you're here in the chat, go ahead and let us know. Thanks for joining, everybody. Just a Wednesday night live stream. Tio and I were bored, and we needed something to do, so here we go. And he is a roving correspondent today. You want to explain the story?
Coming to you live on the scene from Cumberland, Wisconsin, a beautiful lake, whatever its name is. There's currently one water skier out behind a pontoon boat, and several children walking around. Back to you, Ape.
Well, I'm here in Studio One. We're getting some folks in the chat. Hello, Anime, Ham Radio Dude. Folks are piling in over there. Today we're going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite things, the TinySA.
I'm going to have to put on my safety glasses because I'm in like close quarters, and if I take this thing and I whip it around, ow, it's going to hit me in the face.
Well, apparently they have put a new tip on the end of that thing because so many people were worried about it being dangerous.
On the end of the signal stick? This is an old model.
That's better than the one I got. The one I got's just got like this little teeny piece of plastic on there, and I'm constantly afraid I'm going to poke my eye out.
So it's 3D printed.
It is. The whole the antenna is not, but most of it's 3D printed.
Yeah.
And I think that's like piano, like bass cord or something like that, some kind of wire like that.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of wire, and when it gets cold, it actually just starts to droop down. It's kind of funny.
It is. I want to play a quick clip for the show sponsors. I forgot to do that earlier, so here we go. And I just wanted to say a big thank you to all the folks that support the channel over on Patreon and the folks that support the channel on YouTube. Thanks, everybody. We do appreciate it. And we're back. Well, I'm going to try something. I'm going to try to flip to the eye in the sky cam. And I'm pretty sure I've done this live once or twice, but we'll see.
If he drops the stream, I'll just hold it until he gets back.
So
he's gone.
Can you see that okay or no?
No, you're gone. Where'd you go?
Stop, you're lying.
I am.
Let me see if I can this full screen, and I can click over here, and I can go solo layout. So you're hidden from the masses right now, Tio.
Okay.
This is a TinySA. It's a small device. Both Tio and I have a video kind of introducing a TinySA where we go through the calibration. So I would encourage folks to go ahead and check that out. I'm not going to do all that in this particular video. But you have two ports, a high and a low port. The low port is 0 through 350 megahertz, I believe. The top port is 300 or 350, whatever what it is, to 900. And then what you do is you use this to inject signals into this, and then you can see a frequency response. And it's pretty cool. It's not the most important tool for ham radio. Like, I would recommend somebody go with a nano VNA before buying something like this. But as you start to progress in the hobby and you want to take a look at signals, this might be a nice device for folks to pick up. It's very similar to the nano VNA, designed by the same folks. You have a USB-C port here for charging and connecting to a computer to run some software. We'll do that. On-off switch, jog dial, and the whole thing runs off of a touchscreen menu. So, pretty handy stuff. In today's video, we're going to connect this to a couple of different things and take a look at signals. One of which is going to be a Baofeng. Now, the reason I use this Baofeng is it's got a pretty strong harmonic signal. It's debatable being legal or not. So we're going to take a look at that, and we'll talk a little bit about how you can test HT radios. When you do this, it's important to use a device like this. This is called an attenuator. And what this does is it weakens your signal so you don't fry the sensitive front end of something like a TinySA. But you would use this on a regular spectrum analyzer as well. It's just a good practice to use these. And then we use a jumper cable like this with, I think it's 318 Cat5 cable, not Cat5, coaxial cable, just to release strain on the different parts and components so that we don't have any damage there. We're also going to do a test with this, it's called a band stop filter. But a lot of what you do with spectrum analyzers is you do analysis on filters. And we're going to take a look at this one. And what this one does is it rejects your FM broadcast band. People use this in the event that the radio gets overloaded by strong or close FM stations. And here I have a 30 dB attenuator. Now this one's small because it's only rated for 2 watts. This one's big because it's rated for 10 watts. The other thing I was going to use today, and it just came in the mail today. I ordered it a couple days ago. I was pretty nervous. This is a noise generator. It's a broadband noise generator. And these are
So that
really
makes you an
handy.
expert, right?
It makes me an expert. These are really handy for spectrum analyzers because they allow you to raise your noise floor as if you were getting broadcast across the entire spectrum to test filters. And we'll talk about that more when we go ahead and do it. The other thing I wanted to do real quick was show this. We're going to use this DDS signal generator to do some testing in the video as well. And I have a video on this CC generator if you're interested in learning more about it. But we're just going to use this to inject some signals into the TinySA and take a look at them and see what comes up. And I think that covers it, Tio. Was there anything else?
I think that's it. But, the show must evolve, and squirrels will prevail.
Right, and I should be back now. And let me remove this from the screen. Oh, before I remove that from the screen, let me do this. Hey, welcome Spider Monkey Tim. Thanks, I appreciate it. When I have all that stuff up, I'm trying to focus Thump, and I'm trying to focus the camera too. I apologize when I have the screen up like that. I cannot see the chat, so I appreciate everybody in the chat. Howdy to everybody in the chat. I hope everybody in the chat is doing well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show some pictures that I did. So I wanted to explain a little bit around, like everybody thinks that these are oscilloscopes. Same thing with the Nano VNA. It's not, it's different. So when you use an oscilloscope, and I drew the sine wave, that's pretty good, isn't it?
That looks really good. Was that MS Paint?
It was, I did it in Google Slides, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
Yeah, they have something called a squiggle line that you can add, and then you can adjust it. But anyhow, what a oscilloscope does, it shows voltage or power, which is your vertical axis over your horizontal over time. So what that allows you to do is see power voltage fluctuations coming in or out of a device over a period of time, which is pretty handy if you're into electronics. Now, this picture's not as good. My spectrum analyzer picture, that noise floor looks terrible, doesn't it?
It looks completely convincing to me, though.
Well, there's a couple parts where it curls over, and I freehanded that, and that's what I got. But with a spectrum analyzer, you look at power or the strength of a signal over frequency, and that allows you to take a different look or get a different perspective on what is going on with that device or with that signal than an oscilloscope. So it's a complementary device. It's not the same thing. Let's take a look and see what's going on in the chat. Kevin is saying that it's all illegal. I don't know what he's talking about, but it could be.
Everything we do.
Yup. MRD says you guys aren't supposed to be streaming when he's hiking. I didn't know you were hiking. I checked the calendar, bro.
I didn't see it on the calendar either. So, give us a heads up next time.
We have the streaming calendar and we have the hiking calendar, if I remember correctly.
Oh, I don't have the hiking calendar. That's why.
Ham Radio Dude says he is a natural noise generator. And I believe that that's true.
I believe it as well.
And what we got here is Roger saying a lot of circle back in that noise floor. Yes, you are correct, Roger. That's what I was trying to avoid. How you doing, Melissa? Appreciate you being here.
I can't see those comments. I gotta put my danger glasses on again.
The danger glasses look good, though.
I appreciate that.
And Thump is telling you to be careful. You're going to put your eye out.
That's why I got the glasses on. Now I'm safe.
So while you're out roaming, being the roaming reporter, what is your plan? You got a plan to do something out there?
I stopped by the village board meeting because I'm looking at rezoning a piece of property, and all 5 of us in the village board meeting. Now keep in mind that the village population, the entire town population, is less than 500, and the village board met. They were supposed to meet at 6. They started 45 minutes early. I got in there right in time for them to start talking about me. They asked me a question about something that was already on the form that I filled out. I said yes, and then I'm on my way. So here we are.
Gotcha. Now you have the TinySA and a Nano VNA with you. They're
I,
your EDC lab equipment, right?
I do. I carry this stuff with me everywhere I go. So I've got the TinySA, and I've got the super elastic signal stick hooked up to it, and then still in its protective sleeve is the Nano VNA. This one comes courtesy of Thump in the chat. Thank you, Thump. He was actually asking me if it made it okay today. I'm like, yeah, it did. No scratches, no nothing. There it is.
Was that today that it showed up in the mail, or?
No, I've had it for like a week now, and we were talking about it, but it was one of those things where he sent over a 3D printed part because Thump is an excellent 3D print designer, and the 3D printed part, as you well know, it uses those ridiculously tiny screws that Thump likes to use.
They're smaller than pieces of rice.
So I started asking him, like, what screws do I use? Where do I get these screws? And I thought that implied that I had received it, and that's totally on me. I am also, as a ham, working on my communication skills. I haven't passed the amateur communications portion of the license. That element. What is that? Element 5? Element 6?
I think it is element 5.
Yeah, I haven't passed element 5 yet. So
Well, we're not gonna tell on you.
no.
All right, according to my list, we did the Eye in the Sky camera, we showed the TinySA, and we talked about how we're going to connect it to devices. And we covered the scope versus TinySA slides.
We got a jet ski towing a pontoon boat here. Let's see if you can see that.
It's a pontoon boat.
I can't see what you can see, so I don't know if you can see it.
I can see the pontoon. I can see it, and let me see if I'm gonna get you on solo layout, and we can see it. I bet you that pontoon boat ran out of gas.
Yep, always somebody helpful out on the water.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, well, we got this piece of software that we're going to take a look at too. Let me see if I can share my screen. Window, and then I got to find it. I think this is it. And that is the TinySA app. And so I don't use this that often, so I might make a mistake or two while I'm at it. So take it easy on me in the chat. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hook the TinySA up to that. It's just simple. I plug in the device and hopefully nothing crashes, and it didn't. And then
plugging in USB live on stream. You living on the edge, man.
Yeah, so I should be connected at this point, and then I can start a continuous sweep. So you should be able to see that. This is set up for, what are we at? We're at 5 megahertz is our low, and our high end is at 300 megahertz. And what's really cool about that, keep in mind, you can get a TinySA for about 50 to 75 bucks, depending upon where you get it. And I always encourage folks to get them from R&L Electronics.
Yeah.
I don't get any kickback or money or greased pockets or anything like that from those guys, but it's the right place to get them, and so that's why I would tell you to do that. And then I'm actually connecting my Baofeng up to this. And we're on. We're in frequency mode.
And you've got that attenuator in line and everything you were talking about?
I do, because that way I'm not going to let the smoke out, which I know everybody wants to see. Actually, let me see if I can go to the... Let me do this real quick.
Because it says right on it, no more than 10 dBm input.
So I got my attenuator here. And then I actually have the TinySA set to attenuate another 20 dB for extra protection. Let me go back to my webcam and then minimize, and then go back here, and let me go ahead and go to this view. And then I got to add this to the stream, and there we are back at the software. And I also keep my radio turned down to its lowest power level. So that way I don't, just a triple protection, I guess is what you would call that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to key up, and then we can see what happens here. And initially when it comes up, you see all these little spurs and harmonics down here. Actually, they're spurious emissions. They may be a result of mixing in the TinySA, or they may be a result of something coming out of the radio. I'm not entirely sure. So I can come over here and I can see my fundamental frequency. The radio is set for 14652. This is reading at 146.74, which is interesting. But we'll just assume that that's something goofy that's going on there. But this will tell me right here, it is at 0.68 dBm, so it's just over 0. if I come over here and I take a look at this spurious emission, it's at negative 42. So that actually would be a legal spur because it's 40 dB down. It's more than 40 dB down. Now I've used this radio and I've tested it and it hasn't been that. Let me see if I can change my span to make it a little bit smaller.
I found when I change the span, it starts updating at a weird speed.
It does. It'll change because so the way the TinySA works is it does a scan this direction from left to right. It just keeps going over and scanning and scanning and scanning. And depending upon how many, like right here, you can see I have 1,000 data points. So whatever amount of spectrum we're scanning is divided by 1,000. That's how many data points it collects. And then I can change the mode from low to high speed if I want. But I don't want it. Oh, here we go. We just changed something here. And let's see if I can get my center back to... All right, I think we're back. I still want something goofy on me. In this software, I'm just going to tell you because it is not the best software.
And you're using it on Windows. If you try this on Mac OS, it's even worse.
Yeah, so now we got a problem here.
I ain't picking any holy wars. It's just the state of the software.
Let me disconnect and let me go ahead and see if I can adjust it on the TinySA. No, I just unplugged a device on the. Yeah, that will set a stop frequency at 150 megahertz. And now I'm going to plug back in and hopefully it doesn't all come crashing down. And then I got to come up here and I got to select my COM port and then I got to connect. Yeah, something's goofy on this thing. There's nothing like having a failure on live screen, right?
Yeah, what are you trying to get it to do?
Well, I'm trying to set my span. I want to set it to... Right now it's set for 350 megahertz, and I want it to be set for something smaller, like 50 megahertz. So it looks like I can change that, but then it changes right back.
Just try pressing enter instead.
Let's do that, and then if I come up here and I set my center to just set it to 150, then we should be good. Now, I should, when I click this scan is what I think. See how it keeps reverting back?
Yep.
I guess what we could do is we could turn the software off and turn it back on again.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
I have not. Also, you can toggle on your ham bands, but I don't like doing that. Well, let's failed to save the file. Did you see that? Let's fire it back up again. Give me 1 second, folks. I'm slow moving over here.
Can you guess what kind of car I'm in based on the sound you just heard?
I wouldn't be able to get it right. All right, I'm back in the software. Let me see if I can get it working. Yeah, for whatever reason, it is just not doing it. I just got it, I think. And I didn't. Oh, well. It is what it is.
And what's the next item on the agenda?
Well, the next item, let me pull up the...
What does that click? That didn't happen.
Yeah, sorry, guys. Sorry about that. But that's what happens here. Somebody's saying it's a keyboard to chair issue. It very well could be.
Headcack.
Yeah, so I'm going to disconnect this from the Baofeng because I think it was time to do that anyway. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect it up to the signal generator that we have going on.
The Ape's working on just a single screen, and so that's why he's unable to get the equipment up and working.
And I use an attenuator for the signal generator as well. And let me pull up the share screen function. And let me see if I can get this connected. So what you can see here is that I am running a 20 megahertz signal. You can see it right here on 20 megahertz coming out of that signal generator that I showed earlier. And it is a 1 volt signal, and it is a sine wave. And what you can see here is your fundamental, your second, and your third harmonic. So your harmonics are multiples. Is this on the screen?
No.
There we go. I'm sorry. Well, this is a terrible stream. Sorry, guys. but now it's on the screen. So you can see right here is the fundamental frequency that I was talking about. And this is coming out of our signal generator, and it is 20 megahertz. And it's a 1 volt signal coming into the TinySA. And like when people talk about harmonics, they're like, "Are you getting harmonics off of that radio, your Baofeng?" This would be your first harmonic, and this would be your second harmonic. And basically, it's just the way that sine waves work that you'll get. It's the same way that your HF NFET antenna works, is off of harmonic frequencies. You'll get the signal repeating again and again until it dies out. These other things are likely spurious emissions or mixing artifacts inside the TinySA. But I wanted to show that because these are harmonics of a fundamental frequency, which is my sine wave. I'm going to go back over to the signal generator, and one of the things I can do is I can change the wave type to square waves. And when you see that, square waves are made up of harmonics as well, but they're made up of the odd harmonics. This will be your fundamental, your first, your second, your third. So these two are added together along with your fifth and seventh harmonic in order to make a square wave. When you look at a square wave on an oscilloscope, what you see is a bunch of little boxes. When you look at it on a spectrum analyzer, you see what frequencies it's actually emitting a signal on. And that goes kind of back to that time domain versus the frequency domain, and kind of why I wanted to show that in this video. So let's take a look and see what we got going on in the chat. And it looks
Dude's
like
dropping knowledge.
It looks like Ham Radio Dude is quoting from the book of the FCC, right?
The one book. No, wait, that's a phone book.
The one book is the phone book, right? Didn't Darth Vader do that?
Yes. Darth Vader starred in the phone book.
It looks like Todd, the Hilton, is about 6 blocks away from me, and there's only 1 block from me, and there's another 4 blocks away. I have no idea what he's talking about. But
Todd and Jim are talking about places in Hawaii that they've both been. Book 97, that's right, dude.
So I can also go through different waves, and you can see, like, this would be a triangle wave, and it's made up of different signal types. And so it's kind of cool to be able to sit here and flip through the signal generator, having it hooked up to the spectrum analyzer, and see all these things. I find it interesting. I know it's kind of nerdy, but that's what I'm into. So did you want to hook yours up and see if you can pick up any FM stations there to you?
Yeah, so I've got mine set with a start frequency of 90, a stop frequency of 100. And if I put this up in front of the screen, I can't see the screen. Yeah.
We can see it a little bit. This hasn't been the most technical of streams in terms of production quality, but that's okay.
So there's the FM broadcast station somewhere near me. So that works out pretty well there. And then I can pick up the peaks. And how do I do that? There's a way to do it by just tapping the screen, or you can use the big jog wheel at the top. And it's a ballistic jog wheel, so the longer you hold it, the faster it moves. So I've got one at 92.66, so almost 93 megahertz. And then I've got another one at 95. And then another one at 96. 96 and a half. And so that, I guess that 96 and 96 and a half is the RDS edition there. I don't know, you still have me on center. I wasn't really being cinematic is the word I was looking for. So if you guys are familiar with FM frequencies, there is the primary frequency, and then on each side you get a little bit of extra information which is how you get the data on your radio that tells you what song is playing and what the station name is and what type of station it is. So a lot of modern car stereos, you can say, program all of my preset buttons with country and or Western music. And it will be able to determine that because of RDS, which is Radio Digital Service, I believe. Did we lose Ape? Did he go away?
I'm sitting here on mute. Sorry, man. I'm with you. I listen to both kinds of music, country and Western. So
Country and Western, yeah.
that would make sense to do that then. So let me get you off of the solo layout.
Yeah, and then there's like HD FM out now too, which I think is using the upper and the lower frequencies right next to the primary frequency.
Yeah, my buddy was telling me about HD AM. But my receiver in the Jeep does not do that. Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't buy new cars. I have no idea. And then when I'm in the car, I don't listen to the radio anyway.
What do you listen to? The voices?
I either listen to audiobooks or podcasts like Hamdam Thoughts, or I enjoy the ambient sounds of the voices in my head.
All right, so I actually figured out how to adjust the scale while we were doing all that. And so here we're taking a look at the signal from the signal generator, and this would be the sine wave signal. And there it is. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is this setting here, this resolution bandwidth. So like when think of a spectrum analyzer as kind of like your band scope on your ICOM IC 7300. And you have your filter that you adjust. That's called your passband filter. And resolution bandwidth is a passband filter that just goes across the spectrum the same way that your scan goes across the spectrum. When you're doing a scan, your resolution bandwidth moves with that. And it's just a little window that takes a look at that. Now you can adjust your setting. This is set for auto, but and I'm clicking it on the wrong screen. But I can adjust this to make my window larger or smaller. Now, when you mess with your resolution bandwidth, it messes with the amount of time that it takes to do a scan. Because if it's smaller, it moves slower. If it's big, it moves faster.
That's what I was asking about earlier. Do you know why it moves slower when it has less to scan?
It moves slower. Well, when it's smaller, it moves slower because it's got more distance to cover than if it's bigger. So think about like a 3-foot person taking steps as opposed to a 6-foot person taking steps. They're going to go twice as fast.
Yeah.
But your TinySA is a receiver more or less like your 7300.
Yep.
And you have to tune it in when you want to look at a signal, just like you have to tune in your radio when you want to listen to a signal. So here's how this signal looks at the same bandwidth at 300 kilohertz resolution bandwidth. See how it's a little bit wider? That's because you're taking a look at it through a wider lens. So like if I go up to 600, let's see what it takes. See, you lose granularity when you do that. But the scan's going much, much faster. Now, if I drop down to like 10 kilohertz, let's see what happens. See how
It hasn't completed the sweep yet. There it goes.
But that's more likely what the signal looks like. Now, notice at 10, our noise floor is below 90 dB. And then if I go back to 300, our noise floor is going to come back up. And that's because we also are scanning the noise floor and coming up with averaging, and it's pulling the peaks out there. So that's just something I wanted to point out and show folks. You really have to manipulate or tune these things in when you're taking a look at one of these things.
And that's kind of the same thing with any measuring device. When you look at it from a 350 wide perspective versus looking at it from a 10 wide perspective, you're going to get much more granularity on the 10 wide perspective because 1,000 samples in 10 is a lot different than 1,000 samples spread over 350.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Greg is saying he loves the explanation on the scan time. Thanks, Greg. It's why we do these things. So
We're all better together.
One of the things I want to talk about, I really like the TinySA. I think it's cool. But I bought a more high-end spectrum analyzer, the Siglin, and I've shown that on a couple videos because it has something called a tracking generator. And what that tracking generator does is emits a signal just like our signal generator. See how we have this signal here? It emits it in concert or in series with the sweep time. Now you may be able to get a signal generator that allows you to coordinate your sweep time with the signal time, the sweep and the signal. But I don't know, you have to use a external clock and all that other kind of stuff. And I don't know if the TinySA supports that or not. So one of the things I wanted to do here, let's see if I can figure it out, is I wanted to do a sweep. Let's see if I can figure this out real quick. With my signal generator, so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's see if I keep going through these functions. I should have done my homework with this thing, right? But that's okay. That's why we're here. Give me 1 second, folks. I apologize. See, when this happens, you start to go into you start to go into panic mode, right?
It's kind of like playing miniature golf. When you get 9 strokes on the first hole, game's over.
Right. Let me set my stop frequency to 10. And then I'm going to set my start frequency to 0.1. And then I am going to turn on my sweep function. And it says it's running. Oh, let me stop this real quick. And I have to make some adjustments real quick. Start is going to be at 1 megahertz, and then the stop is going to be at 10 megahertz. And now I can turn it on. And so you can see as we take our signal generator and we go through our sweep, you can see the signal move across the spectrum. But as it's doing that, that doesn't really do me any favors if I'm trying to do a filter scan, which is something we're going to do in a few minutes. And we like to scan filters to see how they perform before we put them in line in our antenna systems. So what I want is a constant noise source because I don't have a tracking generator that coordinates my sweep time with the signal time. This is what I get. So I bought that thing today, and I was showing you folks earlier. Let me go back to the eye in the sky cam. So I bought this device earlier, and this is not a tracking generator, and it's not a signal generator. It's what they call a noise generator, and what it'll allow me to do is generate a bunch of noise that'll go across multiple frequencies. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this up. Let me find all my parts. Tio, where did my parts go, brother?
I don't know, but I was playing around and I got it in on the APRS frequency, and there's actually APRS traffic out here in the middle of nowhere.
You want me to pull you up so you can share with the class?
Nah, it's just looking at a peak on 144.39. You've seen one peak, you've seen them all, right?
Yeah.
What is it Ron White says? Once you've seen one set of peaks, you want to see the rest of them?
Ron White is he's a funny guy. So what I have here is I connected our band stop up, and then I have the attenuator in line, and it's going into my low input on the TinySA. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up the noise source. And just a little quick tip for you. When you go to connect these things, sometimes it feels like it's going to get cross-threaded. Turn the reverse direction and then turn the forward direction, and that should help you out with any cross-threading problems. Yeah,
so you'll feel it snap down into place as it gets into that first groove, that first bite on both the connector and the opposite connector.
Yep, and then here's my Bioenno battery. You gotta love Bioenno. And then here's my charging for this, and I plug it in. And then you can see that this is going to, it already adjusted. So let me go back to this thing. So here's my software. If you remember before, the noise floor was down around 90, negative 90 dBm. So now we're up around 30 to 35. Now, because this is a noise generator, not a tracking generator, it's kind of messy. Now, we might have the ability to adjust this or normalize it like you do in a higher-end spectrum analyzer. I just don't know if that's something the TinySA can do. I haven't played around with it enough. But this filter that I put in line actually blocks out the FM frequency bands, which we can't see because I'm not set up to do that right now. So let's set my stop frequency to 120 megahertz, and my start will set it at let's say 65. So that should cover the FM spectrum. So let me go ahead. Actually, let me change my stop frequency to 150. There we go. So see how the signal comes in, and this is just noise coming in off the noise generator. But once my filter is engaged, it starts to attenuate. So it works as like an attenuator, but it's not a broadband attenuator. And then it attenuates the FM band and knocks it completely out. Now you could do this with multiple bands, for example. Like if you wanted to knock out, say, the 40 meter band, you could build a filter to do that. I don't know why you would do that. But as hams, we build these low pass and high pass filters all the time and use them in antenna systems. So we can do things like, perfect our antenna performance. Let me show you real quick. This is actually a filter that I built. And I built this as a trap. It works as a filter, but what it does is basically traps megahertz. So it doesn't travel the full length of an antenna, but you don't always have to do that. But I guess the story that I wanted to tell today was really just show these things and how they work, and then how the filtering works, and the different ways that you can measure that. And I guess the moral of the story is, if you get a TinySA, they're cool and they're fun to play with, but you probably want to get yourself some attenuators, and you probably want to get yourself a noise source at a minimum, or even a noise source and a signal generator. You want to pull up that APRS traffic there to you?
I was playing with my references and my scale and everything, and so now I've got it all set up where it's going to be even harder to see. I changed my scales per division so that there's only 20 on the screen, so it shows up taller.
Right.
And then I'm centered on 144. I'm starting on 144.30, stopped on 144.40. And so you can see it jumping around. I was trying to get it narrowed in there.
No, that's cool. So you can see the stuff coming in.
Yeah, and it's actually more traffic than I thought there would be. And it kind of makes me wonder, because I don't think there's that many hams around here.
Well, they put it on all kinds of stuff, right? Like I've seen delivery trucks with APRS traffics and boats and all that other kind of stuff, right?
You shouldn't, but you probably do, yeah.
I'm trying to.
Those are licensed portions of the spectrum, son.
I guess you're right. I never thought about it like that. I think that might conclude the demo portion. Let's see if there's any questions, or if we got anything. They're talking about 8 tracks in there. It must have been a really boring demo. Sorry, guys.
We just got to talk about whatever we want. You guys stream ahead.
Yeah, right.
We're just facilitating the chat for these folks.
Well, they're also talking about things like reel-to-reels. My dad had this sweet reel-to-reel system back in the day. But one thing I'll say about it is like, everybody, TVs and stuff used to have that wood panel, like the wood case.
Wood grain, yeah.
And like I remember his reel-to-reel had wood-toned contact paper on it, so it looked like it was wood, but
nice.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
He's putting on airs.
Yeah, but even like the speakers we had in our house, like these giant, they had these wooden speakers. But that's what everybody did. But yeah, the reel-to-reels, they say that's the best sound you can get. I don't know.
I don't know. I think what they're talking about is that there's a lot of nuance inside of the analog portion of audio that just doesn't exist inside of the digital portion of audio.
Yeah, well, what's funny about that is the record players are making a really big comeback.
Yeah.
My daughter was, I think I might have told the story, was cleaning out the basement storage space, and she brought up this leatherette briefcase I used to carry around in the mid '80s.
Nice.
And I knew immediately what it was. It was my cassette tape holder that I used to roll around in my Taurus with, and and rock out. And she opens it up and she's like, "Dad, what are these things?" And I'm like, that's my Summer Mix '88 tape. Don't mess with it.
So if you're thinking about like cassette tapes as being old-fashioned, just remember that there are people alive today that have never seen a corded phone.
That's true. We were, thank you, Anime. I try to do the best I can. Sometimes I don't. We were at a wedding probably about 10 years ago. And there was a kid there, who was like 18 years old. And they had actually hired a DJ who brought, wax. He had vinyl records there. And this kid says to me, he goes, "Hey, Uncle Ape, what are they?" I'm like, "You got to be kidding me, son." And I was like, so I, took him over and I said, "Explain to this here boy what them things are." Thank you, FEP Labs. I will get my milk. I appreciate that. But yeah, that's funny, kids. Like when I was a kid and you would call your girl, you had to stand there with the phone like this, hooked to the short cord.
You were
And I
tied to
didn't
that
have,
wall.
and these kids are all today to talk about privacy. I didn't have a phone in my room. We had two phones in the house. We had a phone in the kitchen, and we had a phone in my parents' room. That was it. And if you were talking on the phone, you was in one of them.
And you couldn't stay on the line long in case grandma needed to call. It's almost like being on a repeater where they say, keep this line clear in case there's an emergency.
That might be why they think that way, now that you mention it. But you're totally right. Like, you couldn't be on the phone and be like, "You tying up the phone talking to them girls." And so it's always like, you got to get off the phone. It sucked. It was the worst. Yeah. And then, like, I had sisters. So everybody's always like, "I want to use the phone." So we had to come up with it, like, all right, Little Ape uses the phone between 6:45 and 7:10.
Oh, no, he's talking about Little Ape now.
Right,
the string just got R-rated.
So it's terrible. It's terrible. I couldn't, that's what happens with this chat. They get you going, and then all of a sudden you're talking about, I do remember somebody's talking about the party lines. I do remember the party lines, and that's hit the wrong one. But I love that, Todd. There were a couple that you could call, but you don't know you're talking to some, creep. You don't have any idea who's on the other end of that thing.
Yeah, I've only heard of them. I've never seen them.
As opposed to the chat here. I'm sure there's no creeps in the chat.
There either is no creeps in the chat or they're all creeps and you can't tell, right?
So, Beer Snacks talking about sprint long distance for 10 cents a minute. Back when I was a kid in high school, them 976 numbers started coming out.
Oh, yeah.
And my friend had three-way calling, and it's terrible. So I told him, I said, "Hey, man, I know a girl from math class that thinks that she's interested in you. Why don't you call her up on the three-way calling, and I'll talk to her, and you can listen in and see what she says." And my buddy's like, yeah, that sounds good. So I said, "All right, here's a number, 976. And I told him the number, and he dials it. And then 2 weeks later, his mother calls my mother, and she's like, "My boy says he was tricked into calling the girly line by your boy, and I've got a $4.99 charge on myself on my bell, whatever it's called, bill. And your boy needs to make that right." And so my mom comes in and she's like, "Hey, did you do that?" I'm like, "No." It wasn't me. It must have been somebody else. So,
Dan's got it right. Collect call from the mall with message, "I'm done at the mall, ready to be picked up."
Right.
Do you accept the charges? No. It's hilarious.
And we got Nico's asking me about the Hermes light. He said, "How's that Hermes so far?"
Free reading. It's Cleo with the free reading.
So the Hermes is put together. It's right here, looking cool. This thing is pretty slick, and apparently there's like tons of mods and stuff like that you can do for these. And the guys who are into these things. I still have some work to do there, Nico. I'm not gonna lie, but it's coming along. It's been a fun project so far. And then let's see what else we got in here. No, KI5FWJ, he says, "It's sexy." It sure is. I never thought I would talk about radio equipment that way when I was younger, but it definitely is sexy.
Yeah, check out the knobs on that one.
Yeah, when I was real young, this is funny. We had a sales guy come to work, and he was trying to sell some software. My boss couldn't attend the meeting. And he's like, "You go." And I was like, "What do you want me to?" And he's like, "Just go and act like you're the decision maker." So, all right, I can do that. So I'm sitting there, and the sales guy's like, "Yeah, this software's got a sexy interface." And I'm like, what are you talking about? Sexy interface. But that was the first time I really had heard it. Stuff. We're going to get demonetized here. But that was the first time I heard people talk that way. So, I don't know how much more we got to cover. I do like hanging out.
Yeah, Gordo's saying he's taking his exam on Monday. Good luck on the exam, Gordo. I know you got this. You've been studying for a while.
Yeah, man, just stay calm. That's the thing. You got to stay calm when you do this stuff. They try to get you all worked up.
At least 2 of the answers don't apply, and then the other 2, they got the words switched around, so you can't tell what the right answer is.
Yeah, good luck with it, brother. I think you got it. Radio.
I always love it when they do the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and you play the 50-50 card, and they pull off 2 answers that leaving 2 behind that don't help you at all.
Right. You know, it's kind of silly. You should be able to use the open book. My opinions on the test are out there. It should be an open book test. Like if I'm operating and I need to know the band edge, I can just look it up, right?
You're going to, yeah.
See, Sideboom's got more screen names than anybody I know. He's got Uber Geek, Sideboom with a 3 in there somewhere. I don't know who I'm talking to half the time.
Starting to get dark here early, man.
Yeah, we'll get you out of here. T-Ray, if you want that shirt, I need you to get with me, bro. It's I DM'd you a couple days ago on Discord.
Slide into them DMs.
That's right. That's what I was doing. But what do you got coming up? You got anything coming up?
Yeah, so I actually got a couple of my videos out of order. I was all talking about that NFED half-wave configuration video, and that's next Tuesday because I did the AMP video yesterday. And that AMP video is doing pretty well. I was actually pretty surprised. The boys at the clubhouse this morning were talking about it in between stories of like blowing your fingertips off in old Navy ships and stuff like that. So drowning in the barracks and I don't know. It was a wild ride this morning. Bill's a character. I like listening to Bill's stories. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, that Joe Slick. That's Joe Slick in the chat, right?
That is.
Yeah, he does. He sounds like he's a character. And then this weekend we have 2 Coffee and Ham radio shows. The first one, we're trying to lock in a YouTube ham that has really done some cool projects lately. I don't want to spill the beans just in case we don't get it done. And then we're still looking for it. Working on Sunday's topic is the right way to say that, right?
Yeah, let's just say the guy for Saturday, he's well known for some pretty amazing 3D printed stuff, and we don't want to talk about that because there's stuff that's even more interesting.
Yeah. It should
What's
be.
Dan's question?
He's saying, how does the TinySA compare to the Nano VNA when testing these filters? So what's cool about the Nano VNA is a little bit different than a spectrum analyzer. And you can do multi-port or multi-parameter measurements like an S21 to 1.1. And what that allows you to do is shoot signal out. It's kind of like a tracking generator as well. So it's cool. And do a dB loss reference through that filter. But it's similar, but it's different. What I would always tell people is if they're saying, hey, I'm going to buy an instrument so I can be a better ham, what should I get? It's the Nano VNA, no doubt. The TinySA is a little bit of a different beast and a little bit of a different different device that allows you to measure things a little more granularly than I think the Nano VNA. Both are cool, but get the Nano VNA first. Looks like
so the Nano VNA will work out well as an antenna analyzer. I found out today that you can measure capacitance and inductance with it. So if you're testing out a tuner or a toroid or something along those lines, the spectrum analyzer is better for finding signals. So if you're looking for like stray RF in your house, like Ape with his noise problem that he's got, or if you are trying to verify the output of a radio. So like you want to the notorious Baofeng with its, secondary harmonics that aren't 40 dB down. You can prove that that's true or not true with your own personal TinySA and your own personal Baofeng. Or you could spend $75 and get a slightly better HT.
Yeah, and there's a couple different things there, but the TinySA will allow you to shoot a radio into that. and then you can measure the spectrum of the radio and what it's producing, because it's kind of like a radio receiver itself. You
Right.
can't do that with the nano VNA. Todd's saying that sales for his club's IRCHI NFED antenna, the stands for Emergency Amateur Radio Club. I did a build on one of those, and so did T.O.'s daughter, Astro Leah.
Yes, yes. So Todd's a member of the IRCHI Club. Awesome. Oh, Todd, we'll need to do another video on that. That's a 9-to-1 NFED random wire. Thump's got a name for that.
I happen to have that Toroid sitting right here.
Nice.
Thump's saying an NVNA sends a signal and listens to the signal and shows how it changes. It can also listen to a signal and listen to the reflection of that signal. A spectrum analyzer cannot do that either. Right. Now, my Siglent spectrum analyzer can send a signal via the tracking generator, and you can see how it changes. But what we're telling you, Dan, is go ahead and go get the nano VNA.
Okay, so Thump calls the NFED random wire antenna an NFED non-resonant antenna.
Non-random, as we say it. I think he calls it non-random.
We'll hear from him in a second.
Right. He doesn't. He wants to be specific when he got this new 3D printer, and then every day he's got this new modification for it that he's going to do. And he's like, "This is the last modification I'm doing," and I'm like, "No, right. You're going to make it up. You're going to make up another one tomorrow." You can use the TinySA as a fairly good RF generator as well. Within the attenuator of about 40 dB, you can test receivers. Paulo, that is awesome. You can do that with the TinySA, but you can only do it on fixed frequencies. But it can be done. So that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
I was right, Ape. It's non-resonant.
Oh, there. I thought we called it non-random. He's just agreeing with you.
That's one in the TO corner.
He's mad at me for making fun of him in his 3D printer that he bought.
Well, he deserved it.
The gaming ham says he screwed up winding a Toroid a few times. He does. Everybody's messed up once or twice. I messed up good on a 4-to-1 that I did. It didn't work at all. All right, well, if anybody's got any last minute or parting words, now's the time to do it. I'm going to say thank you to everybody in the chat. I really do appreciate it. It makes doing these streams worthwhile and fun. Dan says he is going to get he says he has the nano VNA, so the TinySA is next. Thanks to T.O. I said, hey, I'm going to do a live stream. I need a wingman. And then T.O.'s like, I'm all over that. So
what are we streaming about? Yeah, I'm here. What are we doing? What?
So I appreciate you coming in and doing this. You got anything else you wanted to cover?
See, that's the cool thing about the relationship that you and I have, Abe. You're like, hey, do you want to do something? Yes. What?
Right. We'll talk about what it is later.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, so. All right, I'm going to hit the end stream. Thanks, everybody. Totally appreciate it. And I'm hitting the button.